Hello world, Satonic here, back with your hacking news roundup, and let me tell you, it's been a fun week. First up, one of the most unhinged cases of hacking you've probably ever seen. Before his name ended up in a court document, Michael Scheuer worked as a menu production manager for restaurants at Disney World. However, for reasons unknown, Michael was fired. But despite being terminated, his login credentials still worked, enabling him to allegedly take revenge in some pretty creative ways. His first plan of action was to log into Disney's menu creation software and change all the fonts to Wingdings. Now, if you were born this century, you've probably never heard of Wingdings. It's an old font full of symbols and proto-emojis made years before emojis were even a real thing. And by switching the fonts to Wingdings, he made all the menus look like they were written by the Zodiac Killer. And whilst Disney did catch on pretty quickly, this messed up their menu creation process big time, because the changes had already propagated through the database, screwing up Disney's proprietary menu creation software, knocking the whole system offline for as much as 2 weeks whilst they restored from backups. But Michael wasn't done. Allegedly. So Disney World restaurants have signs outside with QR codes that you can scan to view the menu. He's said to have edited those signs to direct customers to a Boycott Israel website instead, and these signs were actually printed, but Disney isolated them before they were actually sent out to restaurants. So is this guy a troll or an activist? Well, actually he's outright unhinged, because his next plot, which could have seriously turned deadly, also involved him editing menus, but this time he allegedly changed allergy information to make it look like certain food was safe for people with peanut allergies, when it was most definitely not. Disney, keen to avoid poisoning any more of their customers, quickly reverted those changes. And Michael did not get on with his co-workers, trying to make the lives of 14 of them that bit more difficult, with alleged denial of service attacks targeting their Disney employee accounts. The FBI found he kept a JavaScript snippet as a Chrome bookmark, which, when clicked, would spam the login button on Disney's website, locking his co-workers' accounts thanks to too many login requests. He allegedly masked all of his activity using a VPN, in this case Malvad, but even a VPN won't save you from god-awful OPSEC, because logs showed he had also been a frequent user of Malvad whilst he was actually a Disney employee, something which I can't imagine is very common for Disney employees, leading to him becoming a prime suspect. After receiving a notification from Google that the contents of his account had been requested by law enforcement, his co-workers found out just how much he really hated them when he turned up IRL to one of their houses, all captured on a Ring camera. He didn't really do anything, just gave a thumbs up to the camera and drove off. And to make things even weirder, the feds found he had a folder on his computer named Docs, containing the personal information of some of those co-workers. For all of his alleged crimes, Michael is now facing a maximum of 15 years in prison. Next up, tanks, NFTs and Chrome hacks are all a part of North Korea's latest get-rich-quick scheme. But before we get to that, I need to tell you about today's sponsor, DeleteMe. The guys who help you take back control of your personal information from data brokers. Data brokers are notoriously shady companies who spend their time scraping the web for your personal information, building a profile on you which contains a whole array of sensitive data. Then they sell those profiles to, well, could be anyone. Quite often it's just some rando who's willing to stump up a couple bucks on one of those person search websites. But what really worries me is how data brokers could be used to enable doxing or even SIM swapping. But the good news is, there is a solution. It's called DeleteMe, and it works like this. You provide your data to DeleteMe, after all they do need to know what they're looking for, then they'll check hundreds of data brokers for your information, and within just 7 days compile a personalized report on what they found. It's really quite amazing how data brokers manage to get a hold of the data of even the most privacy conscious of people. I've been using DeleteMe for a few months now, and in that time they've reviewed thousands of listings, and best of all, removed my data from dozens of brokers, many of which had things like my name, address, and even phone number. Not only are DeleteMe giving you guys 20% off their eligible plans with my link in the description, but their no-hassle refund policy lets you change your mind for whatever reason before your first report is generated. DeleteMe is also international, serving a dozen countries. Just make sure to click the correct link in the description to take back control of your data today. But as for North Korea's latest get-rich-quick scheme, this is coming from researchers at Kaspersky, who detected that one of their Russian customers had been infected with Manuscript, a variant of malware known to be a favourite of North Korean state-backed hackers. The malware originated from detankzone.com, a site for yet another NFT multiplayer game for you to waste your time on competing for tokens which will probably end up worthless. The Detect Zone game was downloadable, but after extracting the 400MB zip and launching the game, you couldn't even get past the login screen at all. Turns out this was all just one massive distraction, and by the time you so much as loaded the website's homepage, it was all over. The page featured a hidden script which exploited two zero-day vulnerabilities in Chrome, allowing the hackers to bypass Chrome's built-in sandbox and access the entire address space of your Chrome's process, enabling them to extract your cookies, auth tokens, saved passwords, and browsing history. Kaspersky thinks the attack probably went even further than this, that the North Koreans were able to escape the Chrome process entirely and gain full access to victim computers. But soon after researchers started investigating, Kim's henchmen quickly killed the campaign, stopping researchers in their tracks. This was clearly North Korea's latest plot to target people in the crypto world, and it seems every few months North Korean hackers do successfully pull off yet another crypto heist, sometimes stealing tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars in a single operation. This wasn't a silly website designed to steal your Netflix account, but rather potentially the starting point of a major bank heist. And in order to direct traffic to their site, the North Koreans created numerous Twitter accounts to promote their Tank NFT game, which seem to have spent their time just harassing people in comment sections, begging them to respond to DMs. Aside from Twitter, Kaspersky also documented them cold messaging influential accounts on LinkedIn and sending phishing emails. Admittedly, the idea of a Tank NFT game is a pretty creative scheme, though even that is a total fraud. The North Koreans ripped off a legitimate game, DeFi Tankland. But the plot thickens, because just 2 weeks after the fake clone was launched, the real DeFi Tankland announced that $20,000 worth of tokens had been stolen from their cold wallet. The devs blamed this on an insider, but Kaspersky thinks this was also the work of the North Koreans, and that before stealing that $20K, they first stole the game's source code for use in this operation. Next up, one of the cybercriminal underworld's favourite strains of malware has just been totally taken out by the feds, who then proceeded to troll its users into oblivion. Redline Stealer is a super common info stealer that can be bought on dodgy Telegram channels for as little as $100 per month, and like any other info stealer, it exists solely to scoop up saved passwords, among other things, from victim PCs. Info stealers are by far the most common form of malware, and Redline Stealer is the most common form of info stealer. Early this year, researchers estimated that it had been used to steal over 170 million passwords in just 6 months, so the fact it's been taken out is actually a big deal. Operation Magnus, as it's being called, began when the cybersecurity company ESET tipped off Dutch police that Redline's servers were being hosted in their country. After seizing those servers, they realized they ran not only Redline's entire operation, but also the operation of MetaStealer, with the servers containing a mountain of evidence on the users of both services. And as is quickly becoming tradition, the feds wasted no time in putting together a short but slightly cringy video teasing the users of both Redline and Meta, which they posted to the Russian cybercrime forum XSS.
This is the final update for Redline and Meta. This update has been made in partnership with international law enforcement. We gained full access to all Redline and Meta servers. Did you know they are actually pretty much the same? This version of Redline and Meta includes unique insights in your data, username, passwords, IP addresses, timestamps, registration date, and much more. All the Redline and Meta source code, including the licensed servers, REST API servers, panels, stealers, and Telegram bots. VIP status for all Redline and Meta users, where VIP means very important to the police. Thank you for installing this update. We are looking forward to seeing you soon.
Someone who the feds might be seeing soon is one Maxim Rudomitov, a Russian suspected of being a developer and admin of Redline. You could probably make a whole movie on just how the feds tracked him down, but in a nutshell, they discovered an archived forum post on a Russian hacker forum alleging that Redline was made by two guys going by Dendimira and Alinchok. The post led the feds down a bit of a rabbit hole. Using leaked databases, law enforcement linked the Dendimira pseudonym to a certain Yandex email address, which was used to sign up on a totally different Russian hacker forum under the name GHackyHG. In this post, he's trying to sell hacked PayPal accounts, but this is from 2015, when the guy, who's now in his mid-20s, was a lot younger and a lot dumber, and in a very silly move, he shares his Skype account, email address, and even his VK profile, which revealed his identity as allegedly one Maxim Radomitov. However, the real evidence that this guy's behind Redline was found when the feds grabbed the contents of his iCloud account and found a suspicious file called mysterypanel.rar, which corresponds to one of the info stealers he's alleged to have been behind. And further analysis shows that he was using the same IP to access Redline servers as he used to play Tennis Clash on his iPhone. But regardless of being criminally charged, he lives in Russia, so the US can just add him to the list of other Russian cybercriminals they'll probably never get their hands on. Next up, this is rare, Russia actually did a thing against their domestic ransomware gangs, which have spent the last few years almost exclusively terrorizing Western companies. So Russian media is reporting that 4 members of the REvil ransomware gang have just been found guilty of money laundering and distributing malware, with them being handed sentences of between 4 and 6 years, which these guys will probably spend in some repurposed remote Siberian gulag, where the only ransom they'll be negotiating for is extra potato rations. The REvil gang, like pretty much all other Russian cybercriminals, has always made a point not to attack Russia or its allies in order to prevent a situation like this. However, these guys got really unlucky, because just weeks before the invasion of Ukraine, when the US and Russia weren't on quite so bad terms, Biden phoned up Vlad and said they'd identified some members of REvil and asked really nicely for Russia to arrest them, and the next day, REvil had the doors kicked in. As far as cybercriminals go, these guys were considered rock stars. In 2021, they hacked an Apple supplier demanding $50 million or else they'd leak MacBook schematics, and as you can tell by the image, Apple didn't pay. Later in that same year, they carried out one of the most well-known ransomware attacks of all time when they exploited a vulnerability in remote administration software used by over 1,000 companies, causing organizations worldwide to grind to a halt. I could spend the rest of the video just listing their attacks. I mean, the fact they even have a Wikipedia page longer than 2 paragraphs is pretty rare for a ransomware gang. The group was so successful that in their very first year of operation, they claimed to have made over $100 million in profit. But you can't become that rich without making it onto Uncle Sam's hit list, and after the group's servers were quite literally hacked by the FBI, REvil made repeated unsuccessful attempts to reboot their operation before they were eventually shut down IRL. I hope you enjoyed this week's roundup of hacking news, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.